The debt snowball method is a debt reduction strategy where you pay off debt in order of smallest to largest, gaining momentum as you knock out each remaining balance. When the smallest debt is paid in full, you roll the minimum payment you were making on that debt into the next smallest debt payment. Here's how it works. Step 1. List your debts from smallest to largest regardless of interest rate. Step 2. Make minimum payments in all your debts except the smallest. Step 3. Pay as much as possible on your smallest debt. You can do that by cutting expenses, selling stuff, or getting a second job or a side hustle. Step 4. Repeat until the debt is paid in full. It really is that simple. Alright, let's dig right in. If you're working from Google Sheets, the first thing you need to do is make a copy of the document so that it's your own, which will allow you to make edits. You do that by clicking File, then Make Copy. Then just name it what you want to name it. If you downloaded the Microsoft Excel doc, you won't need to do this. Once you open the document, you should see 3 tabs: the How To tab, the Debt Snowball Smarter Setup sheet, and the Payment Schedule sheet. I would suggest reading over the How To tab, or at least recognize that it is there. It should walk you through each of the steps we'll be covering in this video. Now it's time to start adding your information to the Debt Snowball Smarter Setup sheet. You need a list of all your debts from smallest principal balance to largest principal balance. You'll also need to know what the minimum payment is for each debt, the current interest rate for each one, and the due date for each one. Let's start by adding the first and smallest debt of all my debts. For this example, we'll add a Visa credit card. I'll type that in column B. The current balance on that card is $900. The minimum payment is $25. It is important to only put the minimum payment for each debt in this column, even if you are currently paying more than that. The idea around debt snowballing is that you only pay the minimum payment on all your debts except for the smallest one. We'll get into how you can pay more on the smallest debt later. The interest rate on this credit card is 19.2%. The next due date is February 25th, 2023. You'll notice that the spreadsheet will do the math for you in the next 2 columns. If you only pay the minimum payment each month of $25, your estimated payoff date is August 25th, 2027, and with interest payments, you'll end up paying over $1,300. The next smallest debt that I have in terms of principal balance is on my student loan. I have $2,500 left to pay on my student loan. The minimum payment on that loan is $128 a month. Since this is a student loan, the interest rate is pretty low at 3%. The next due date is February 28th, 2023. You can see the math shows that the payoff date will be earlier than my first loan. That's okay since my minimum payment is higher. Okay, so the next smallest debt that I have in terms of principal balance is my car payment. I currently owe $13,000 on my car. The minimum payment on that per month is $249. The interest rate on that car is 7%. The next due date is March 2nd, 2023. You'll notice again that the spreadsheet will do some calculations as far as the estimated payoff date and the total spent. Alright, let's add our last debt. Some would say that you don't need to account for your mortgage payment when debt snowballing, but I like to add it anyways just so I can get the real numbers. The current principal balance on my house is $179,000. The minimum payment is $1,325 a month. I got a really good interest rate at 3.8%. The next due date is on March 1st, 2023. There you can see the estimated payoff amount and the estimated payoff date for my house. Okay, so this is where the debt snowball plan gets really cool. So as we said, debt snowballing relies on the fact that we only pay the minimum balance on all of our debts every month except for the debt that has the lowest principal balance. After that, we take any extra money that we can scrape up at the end of the month and put it towards the lowest balance, even if that extra money is only $25 a month. As you'll see, in the next few steps, even $25 a month can make a big difference. Alright, at the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll see a cell that asks how much money per month you can put towards debt snowballing after all of your expenses are paid and minimum balance is accounted for. If I were to make any suggestion here, I would say that debt snowballing should be more important than almost anything else extra money could go towards. You should put it in front of any vacations, eating out, or really anything. It'll pay off in the end. Alright, before we add that amount in the spreadsheet, I want you to have something to compare the new payoff amounts and dates after you add the extra amount. To do that, take your mouse and left click and hold the mouse in cell G2 and then drag your mouse until you have all of the cells G2 through H15 selected. Then press Ctrl and C at the same time on your keyboard to copy those values. Once you do that, click on cell J2 and press Ctrl, Shift, and V on your keyboard at the same time to paste only the values. If you don't include the Shift key, it'll paste the formulas from the spreadsheet and won't work. It is important that you click on cell J2 and press Ctrl, Shift, and V at the same time to paste the values only. Alright, here's the cool part. Tell the spreadsheet how much extra money you can put towards debt snowballing each month, even if it's $25. A suggestion would be only put an amount that is realistic for you each month because the spreadsheet will hold you to that amount each month. For the purpose of this step, I'm going to put $25 first and press Enter. Once you press Enter, it is extremely important that you wait for the green progress bar at the top right of the spreadsheet to finish. That means that the spreadsheet is calculating in the background, and the numbers won't be accurate until that is done. By changing the amount extra per month, you can see that your estimated payoff date is 3 months sooner and the total amount spent is over $1,000 less. Even cooler is that original smallest debt. By adding just $25 a month, your estimated payoff date is almost 2 years faster. Now let's increase that amount to $50 per month and see what happens. Again, by just adding $50 per month, you can see that it decreases the estimated final payoff date from the original by almost 6 months, and it trims another few months off the smallest debt and $300 in interest payments from the original. Let's say that in order to really pay off debt, you get a second job and put all of that extra money from your second job towards debt snowballing. Let's say that you make $400 a month from your second job. Let's put $400 towards debt snowballing and see what happens. You can see that this changes your estimated payoff date and your estimated total paid with interest dramatically. It cuts your time by almost 3 whole years and cuts interest paid by almost $12,000. I would recommend playing with different amounts per month to see what happens here. You might be surprised what happens when you start to debt snowball. After you have the setup page complete and you have settled on an amount that you can reasonably afford to pay extra each month, you can switch to the next tab. This will be your payment schedule in chronological order to keep you on track. It will allow you to check the boxes as you make those payments in order. You'll notice that the amounts on this page cannot be changed. It's designed for you to stay on track. If the spreadsheet allowed you to change those amounts, you would get off track so fast you won't even know what happened. Trust me. If, after a few months of debt snowballing, you feel like you can or need to make a change to the extra dollar amount per month, I would suggest redoing the setup page and starting from fresh.